slow starts and weak finishes. I had this topic yesterday with Tom on the Faithful Review, and I wanted to get your take on it. As of late, there's been some narrative around the 49ers defense. So what I want to do right now is get into, are the 49ers struggles more about the offense's sluggish starts or the defense's inability to close out games? One thing that we've seen is that, we've lost some close games. There's been a conversation of us possibly being 8-2 rather than being 5-5 if we just finish out some drives. Most of those drives have finished out with our defense being the last unit on the field. But there was some commentary throughout the week about the 49ers defense that is statistically one of the best in the NFL this season. But a closer look reveals that there may be a key contributor to their late game collapses. So in fourth quarter points allowed, last year, they were 3.7 points allowed, and they were ranked first in the NFL. In 2024, with 8.8 this season, they're ranked 27th in the NFL. Extrapolate that to a full game, and that's the difference from the 49ers' 14.8 points per game in 2023 and 35.2 points per game in 2024. Now, their defensive EPA from the first and third quarter is fifth. Their defensive EPA in the fourth quarter is 28th. Last season, their EPA in the fourth quarter was the fourth best overall. So we already talked about the differences in some of these last drives closing the right way, with them possibly being 8-2 versus 5-5. I don't agree with this. I think that this year, if not last year as well, we are an offensively led team because I don't feel like our defense can lead in the way they've done in years past. And I believe that our defense shows up early, fast. They're very opportunistic early in games, especially after halves when they get rest, okay, and they come out their freshest. And I believe that there are many opportunities throughout this season where we haven't really just protected our defense. You look at the turnover on downs last week that the defense got against Seattle, and then we turn right around and go 3 plays for 1 minute and 21 seconds off the clock and don't even make Seattle use any timeouts. Kyle throws the ball 3 times in that drive after only running 1 time with Christian McCaffrey. And it was just an opportunity of Kyle trying to win the play. Now, that's the defense that happens with the offense, is because when you look at plays that don't work, that's what they are, plays. But anybody can break down why a play isn't working. That's not what the exercise is. What we're trying to do is understand what plays can be ran in the context of what's happening in the game at the moment. You need to run out the clock. That's just something that I see from the offense that's happened in multiple games. So what say you? Do you feel as though that it's the defense that's necessarily giving up these games late, or is it the offense not taking advantage of the opportunities that the defense gives them earlier through games and the defense is running out of gas?
I mean, it's definitely tied together. The offense shares some of this. I mean, the defense has done so well early in games when the offense has been floundering, and maybe if the offense could start quicker, it wouldn't come down to 1 score at the end, and I could see all that. But to me, I think the main reason that the defense is struggling so much in the last 2 minutes of they're giving up the most points in the league in the last 2 minutes, I believe. I think that has mostly to do with Sorensen. To me, that's a rookie defensive coordinator, a rookie play caller. And the little I know about defensive coordinators, about football, the last 2 minutes of a game are way different than the rest of the game. The way you're calling plays on offense and defense are different. I think Sorensen does a good job for the first 58 minutes. I think he does a pretty good job. But in those last 2 minutes, a lot of times you don't have to worry about the run game. It's just passing. It's sometimes no huddle. It's fast. And I think what we've seen from him is a very conservative approach. Let's just play too high, zone, rush 4. And that's almost prevent. And just let Geno Smith, Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray just, methodically move the ball down the field and give up runs along the way as well. I think that's been what he's kind of done. And I think a more experienced play caller would have a better plan in the last 2 minutes of a game. I think he's getting beat there. And I think Steve Wilkes was better in the last 2 minutes of a game. And I think his experience was a big reason for that.
Do you think that Kyle's trying to run away from the moment where getting through it fast with explosive plays and process? I feel as though that if you're a coach and you're in a moment of the game is on the line, and if you want to really get out of this thing scot-free and you're the offensive coordinator, just call a play that you know is going to work in the execution, but you can be tone deaf. I think that Kyle isn't an honest broker. Sometimes he's purposely obtuse, where he acts as if the play should have worked. This is what should have happened, but it's gaslighting. It's like, yeah, the play should have worked, but should you have called that play?
No, and
I don't
it's
think
the
that.
same thing that happened in the Super Bowl. It's like you blame Steve Wilkes for not closing out the game at the end, but it's like you could have closed it out with your offense in the third quarter after his defense got you the interception and gave you the ball in Chiefs territory, and you went 3-and-out with 3 passes, and you passed 11 times in the third quarter, and you ran like once or twice. Like that was your opportunity to put the game away with your offense, and you didn't. And then you ask your defense to bail you out at the end, and it doesn't, and they're at fault. Like that's not fair.
But you do understand that this has been happening for years. It's
Yes.
just the only difference is that the defense isn't performing.
Yep.
The defense isn't all world and bails us out. You don't get Nick Bosa in Las Vegas to get a sack pick to close us out when we were one of the best teams in the NFL and they showed up and almost dogged us when we were in Oakland that day. Like you don't get the defense to bow up against Seattle when the offense wasn't showing up to play. They didn't have anything going on in the playoffs. And then our defense is what closes us out to win that game. You don't get our defense that comes out and plays a hell of a game, giving up the biggest rush of the year all year to Aaron Jones in a 50-yard run. Outside of that, basically blanking the Packers and waiting on the offense to show up after over 10 days of rest. Like, how many times when we've been at our best has this offense been the ugly duckling of the team, but everybody kind of sits back and doesn't say anything because what are we doing? We're giving the ball back to our offense. They get so many cracks at it. Go ahead.
Well, when they win with their offense, it's because they score a lot of points and they blow a team out. But when the game is close, they can't win with their offense.
They can't.
We've seen it in every Kyle Super Bowl. When the game is close, he needs to rely on his defensive coordinator to win the game. He's like, look, man, I'm just going to kick some field goals and turn it over to you. Like, and call it complimentary football. That's what he does. And that's why he has such a bad record in one-score game.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I just thought that I wanted to bring up that topic because I felt like
it took me a while to get there too. I'm like, nah, I think this is on Sorensen. And the more I think about it, I'm like, no, it's not on Sorensen.
No.
Like, he's not good in the last 2 minutes, but it really shouldn't come down in the last 2 minutes. A lot of these games.
Thank you. Like, why is it that you get to, so what's more important? The fact that my defense got us to the moment where the last moment of the game is still in balance, or the entire quarter where you shit the bed. What's more important? So you want to talk about my one drive, but we want to ignore an entire quarter where you were inept and we kept giving you the ball back. And we got interceptions.
You could say like, oh, he couldn't stop Geno down the stretch. Couldn't stop Geno. They gave up 20 points in the game.
Dude, all right, so let's put it this way.
Give them 20 points. You should win that game. You scored 17. You don't win that game.
Thank you. This game is a microcosm of how the fan base lets Kyle and his offense off the hook.
True.
We faced a team that is horrible on defense, that cannot stop the run, all right? Yeah. We lose to this team 20-17. Their league average is 24 points a game. We hold them to 4 points under what they usually give up. Then on top of it, we score 17 on them, and their league average is 23. Yeah. We don't even score the league average on them on offense, but then we can sit here and talk about how the defense is giving up drives late in the game. True. But we can't talk about how the drive before that, the offense shit the bed. Yeah. Defense got turnover on downs and gave you back the ball. Let's talk about the pick that defense got.
Lead with you don't even have to score. You're already out of field goal. Like, just bleed the clock, and he's calling passes on 2nd and 11. Like, you stop the clock. It's like, hey, well, hold on. Don't use your timeout, Seattle. Save that. Say it again, because this is too easy.
We don't need that.
Come on. Let's make this competitive.
That's what I mean when that's where I ask, like, are you running from the moment, dude?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, are you trying to take your hands off of this?
I think he is. Let me say something about Kyle. There's a guy who's covered him for 8 years, and I don't want to get irresponsible with psychological and analysis, but I think it's too much for him. He talks about the moment being too much for certain people. I think it's too much for him. I think he's got a great scheme, and I think he can effectively lead a team pretty far. We've seen him do it. But when it's like pressure's on, second half, not just the season on the line, but his legacy on the line, I think it's too much for him. It would be too much for me. But hey, Kyle,
Yeah.
prove me wrong on that one, man. You don't exactly keep your calm and do your best when the pressure is at its highest.
Well, one thing that I will ask, I would love to ask is, the common denominator over all of the failures is lack of self-awareness. And I just feel as though that he's not. I would like to ask, what are you paying attention to? Because you're not paying attention to things that are glaringly in our face as we're watching the game.
And what I don't like is when his camp tries to rewrite history and says, well, look, I mean, the only reason he doesn't have a Super Bowl victory is because he went against Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. No. The only reason he doesn't have a Super Bowl victory is because he beat himself 3 times. Forget the quarterback that you faced. It was you. You beat yourself 3 times in essentially the same way each time. That's the story of Kyle Shanahan until he changes it.
Man, great topic, Grant.